Hello everybody, this is Ruby Stretch coming to you with a new video. And yes, this is a bit out of nowhere, and also I'm talking more about Survivor today rather than Hell's Kitchen. But I will announce some news related to Hell's Kitchen at the end of the video. And I will also let you guys know that this video is unscripted today. I took a few notes. And today I'm going to do a task that's kind of difficult, which is give placement predictions pre-season based on first impressions after looking at contestants' bios and videos for Survivor Québec 2024. I know that the majority of you don't watch Survivor Québec, and even then there are a lot of you that do not watch Survivor in general, but I will be posting English subtitled versions of Survivor Québec. So without further ado, let's get started. So after running through this cast bios and videos, I was able to make a few quick observations. For one thing, I noticed that there are a lot of people who practice multiple sports. For example, there's a few people that will do, let's say, outdoor biking, but that's not the only sport they do. They'll be doing, let's say, 5 other sports or 4 other sports. And there's even one guy who does 10 sports. He's in 10 leagues. There are also a lot of other people that I guess some people might say they're a bit different. Like, for example, we've got this woman who is 6'4" and has a high IQ. We've also got this one guy who is a painter from Saguenay. I also noticed that the average age must be pretty high because the youngest person on this cast is 24 years old, which is impressive. And I noticed that there's about, let's say, 4 or 5 people who I guess I would consider them entrepreneurs or company runners. And I noticed that there are also 6 people born outside of the province. So there seem to be a lot of players that seem naturally good at the game, or at least they seem to at least know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. So I will have to say that making this list and making this placement predictions list was a bit difficult because there weren't that many players who I considered left a bad mark on me. I felt that most people on this cast left a good impression. And when it comes to challenges, I will say that, like I said earlier, a lot of people on this cast practice multiple sports and a lot of them seem fit. So this whole thing about a person making it to the merge being guaranteed or near guaranteed because of their challenge strengths, I'm not going to factor into that as much because I know that it's like, well, pretty much everybody is good at challenges here. That's not always going to be the case because there are some that will stand out more than others. For example, there's one who almost made the Olympics. And the last thing I'll point out before we get into the actual placement predictions is that there's a noticeable number of people in communications positions or in coordination positions. So I think they're really trying to cast people who seem to have some sort of social experience or who can contribute socially. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the actual placement predictions now. So there are going to be 2 tribes, Bayani and Nawa, and I think the dynamics are going to be a bit different between these 2 tribes as the season progresses. I think the Bayani tribe is going to have not a young person's alliance, but more an alliance of people who can blend personalities and fit together. And I'll explain that as we go along with certain people. And I think that this is a more dynamic alliance where people are going to have their differences and that's what they're going to bond on. And then meanwhile, on the Nawa tribe, I think it's going to be the opposite. There's going to be more fluidity in alliances. I don't think that the alliances are going to be constant. So I know that being bang on about everybody's placements pre-season is practically impossible, but I basically decided to break the placements down into sections of the game. There's the pre-swap phase, like presuming that they're going to model themselves after what they did last season. There's going to be the pre-swap phase between the 20th place and the 15th placer. The post-swap phase between the 14th and 12th placer. And then starting at the top 11, that's when the merge happens. And then presuming that they do Redemption Island again, it's at the final 6 when there's no more Redemption Island and the person came back into the game, and that's when the real end game starts. So for the pre-swap section, which covers 20th to 15th place, I decided to just take the 3 people on either tribe that I feel is not going to make it that far, or I feel like is going to be the weakest in terms of their integration into the tribe and getting past this phase. And from there, I just decided to rank them based off of who is least likely to win versus who is most likely to win. So let's get started. So first at number 20, the person I have the least amount of faith in winning this season, going into the season, and someone who I imagine is probably going to be one of the first few boosts and will probably be voted out the first opportunity, let's be honest, is Deborah de Bréclier of the Bayani tribe. She's a 39-year-old woman from Saint-Hyacinthe, but she was born and raised in Belgium. She moved to Quebec on a stage about 13 years ago. Right off the bat in her introduction video, she talked about being squeamish about the scorpions and bugs and is really worried about the sleeping conditions. She talked about how she and her family used to watch Koh Lanta back together in Belgium, and Koh Lanta is the French version of Survivor. But you have to keep in mind that when we talk about Koh Lanta, it's kind of a different league than the Survivor that we know, because the Survivor that we know is very, let's say, in 3rd gear or 4th gear, while Koh Lanta, there's a different mentality that causes it to be, let's say, a little bit more in 2nd gear, where they're still focused on strength of relationships and things like that, and strength and challenges. There's less politicking going on in Koh Lanta. And the thing that kind of raised a red flag for me here is she said she wants to surpass her limits and test her abilities. Stuff that we usually hear from Koh Lanta contestants. So we know that she's going to be a bit behind on that aspect there. I don't think she's going to be as blended in as everybody else there. It's not all that's the issue. The problem is that she talks about her personality, and I feel like this is not going to really work out for her. It's going to rub people the wrong way. She says that she came from an argumentative family, and that there's no point in arguing with her, or at least her friends said that there's no point in arguing with her because she believes she's always right. And she says she's going to have a difficulty holding her tongue. She acknowledges this. There's at least that. But even she feels like she's not sure she's actually going to last, and she's not going to be able to go long without saying her mind too much and pissing people off in a certain way that way. And with all this put together, I just feel like she's just going to be in an early boot. That's what makes the most sense to me. I would compare it to Reem of Survivor Edge of Extinction, but I don't think she's as bad as Reem. I think she's going to at least try, but it's just not going to work. Next up at number 19 is Dominique Simard of Nawa. This is a 29-year-old man from Quebec City. So right off the bat, he confesses that he's going to be lazy and irresponsible, but based on other aspects I've seen of him in the video, I think he's going to be able to camouflage this. I don't think he's going to be coming across as lazy or irresponsible to his tribe mates. That being said, he mentioned that he's a Dungeons and Dragons type of geek. So I think he might have an edge when it comes to blending in with people who are into these games, but I don't think that there are that many people out there that will vibe with him on that level if you look at the rest of the cast. I noticed that based on his attitude, I just feel like he's going to be playing the game a bit too hard. I just feel like he wants to make a move too soon. As much as he's going to connect with people socially, I just think he's going to try to make a move. He's going to try to be slimy, and he's going to give that impression, and that's going to get him voted out very early. Like, I would compare him to Simon of last season. There's also Andy of Australian Survivor seasons 6 and 9. And I would say just recently we've got Gemma of Survivor 46 who tried to do a move a bit too soon, too hard, and it didn't work out. And I think that Dominique's going to be in the same wavelength as those people, playing too hard and getting himself voted out early for that reason. Now at number 18, we've got Audrey Morissette of the Bayani tribe. She's a 36-year-old woman from Blainville, which is a Montreal suburb. And right off the bat in her video, she mentions that she's here to win and not go camping because she claims that she wants to be the first villain. That is interesting from an entertainment standpoint. I would like to see this person be so proudly a villain and make big moves and whatever. And she even talks about this. She's not afraid to cross any lines. She's not afraid to betray people. She just wants to make it to the end with her hands on the steering wheel. She understands certain aspects of the game. She is completely aware that strategizing and social play are going to be paramount. My issue with her is that I don't think she's going to be on a tribe with people that will be receptive to her style of gameplay. I think she's going to be a bit too controlling, a bit too much on the steering wheel. It should be noted that she's a fashion entrepreneur, which combined with the fact that she wants to take over the game like she's a driver who has her hands on the steering wheel, is just a red flag for me because I've noticed this trend of entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs like Natalie of Survivor David versus Goliath, who come across as too bossy and turn their tribe mates off that way early on and cause their early downfalls because of that. And the other thing that I found was interesting about her is that she said that she's not going to be doing necessarily good in challenges, but she did prepare for Survivor by, doing aesthetic changes and going to the gym maybe 3 or 4 times. So I don't think she got that prepared. She even kind of giggled at that last point herself. So I think what's going to happen is, after Desprez gets her easy elimination there, I think that Audrey is not going to fit into that alliance of dynamic personalities that I described earlier. And I'm going to just consistently refer to these people as the dynamic alliance going forward. I just don't think she's going to fit into that group, and she's going to get booted because I don't think they're going to tolerate her kind of gameplay. Now at number 17, and this is the last person on the Bayani tribe who I don't think is going to be in that big dynamic alliance, and that is Raphaël Meret, who is a 26-year-old man from Sainte-Thérèse, which is another suburb of Montreal. He is a bit like Dominique in the sense that he is a big geek towards video games and board games and quizzes and stuff like that. But as a super fan of Survivor, unlike Dominique, who created, let's say, a Twitch streaming channel and whatever, he created a podcast so that he could talk about his reception of Survivor players' gameplay, which means that he studied the seasons beforehand and the game hard, and he commented that his time on the show will be like a final exam to him. It should be noted that even though he's obsessed with video games and he works in the video game world, he works there as a communications coordinator, which I feel is going to be a bit helpful towards developing social interactions. So he has a deep knowledge of the game, and I would compare it to Joel of last season because he seems to have a mind for certain outside-of-the-box maneuvers. He might be recognized for his podcast about Survivor, but I don't think this is likely because, well, you know, for example, I didn't recognize him. I didn't follow his podcast. So as much as he's good socially, like I said before, I just don't see him entering that alliance of dynamic personalities. And also, I just think that given his build and given like the kind of person he is and what he is interested in, like he didn't mention anything about sports. He didn't mention anything about doing physical stuff. So I just feel that on a cast of physically heavy competitors, I just have some questions about how he's going to perform in challenges. So that might handicap him as well. At number 16, we've got Caroline Landry of the Nawa tribe. She's a 59-year-old woman from Lac Beauport, which is a small town near Quebec City. And it should be kept in mind that she faced a lot of hardships in life. She was a single mom at a young age. She experienced kidney cancer. She is also active for a woman her age. She ran a half marathon. She climbed the base camp of Everest. She crossed the desert and does CrossFit 3 times a week. So I think that she will be at her strongest socially, and I also think she might be good at challenges. I think she's going to be able to have this experience that gives her strategic competence even, especially as a banker, and will help her be the glue of an alliance. So I think that she has all these skills to be a good triple threat down the road. My problem with her, and this is why she's, this low, is that I'm concerned about her perception. I'm concerned that because she's a 59-year-old woman, I'm concerned that people will still nevertheless have this conception because she is going to be on a physically heavy cast. Her tribe is physically heavy. They're going to be doing very well in challenges, and I'm concerned that it's going to fall back on her. But if she actually does get past the pre-merge phase of the game, as a Julie type from season 45 of Survivor USA, but if she makes it only to a certain point in the game, like this early, I would compare her to Isabelle from last season. Now at number 15, and I will say that this person was very close to the person at number 14 and the person at number 13. And so as much as I originally planned on focusing on who would be most likely to mismanage a swap for the people in the post-swap phase, I decided just to put these two people at 14 and 13 because I feel like they're very close enough to the person I'm going to be talking about at number 15. And we'll talk about them later. But for now, at number 15, it's Guylain Octopichet of Nawa. And this is a 29-year-old man from Vaudreuil-Dorion. He talks about how he's going to go against his mother's advice, who said that she wanted him to play safe, but he wants to go big or go home. He's a father of 3 and feels family and loyalty are very important values. And he feels that this is going to seep into his game in some sort of form. So I feel like he's going to be a guy who wants to have integrity and he wants to be able to keep his values strong, even if he's playing the game. But he is aware that he has to take risks. He is aware that he has to be a competitor. He is a competitor, as he comments about. Does he have the skills to be able to take risks or backstab? I think he does, because he talks about how he is a real estate entrepreneur. Like, yes, it's true he's an entrepreneur, and that tends to be a red flag for me, but he talks about it being in real estate and how he used to work in sales. So I think he has experience along those kinds of lines of marketing to people. But my concern with him is that all this talk about risk taking and crossing lines and being loyal, he's aware, but I just don't think he's as seasoned as everybody else. And so I think his timing of these specific actions will be a bit misguided. And I think he might do a certain action at the wrong time and that will cost him. I also think that because he talks about integrity and loyalty a little bit too much, he might have some difficulty maneuvering a swap, presuming that he actually makes it there.